Hi crafters, today's video is all about repurposing your supplies, so I'll be using the dies from the latest water collection by Paper Discovery to create a HOBBIT hole card for the best friend. This is the Pond Edge die set that I will be using. It is initially meant to create something like this. It's a stone pool as you're looking down on it. But I think it will also be great as a setting for a round door, so let's go ahead and create our HOBBIT card. The cardstock I'll be using is Coconut White by Creative Expressions. It's a really nice warm shade of white. The cardstock is really smooth and it's extra sturdy, and the price is also great. So I need a card base that is slightly smaller than 6 by 6, so I trimmed down this piece of cardstock to 5 3/4, and then I'm placing it into the scoring board and I'm scoring it again at 5 3/4 mark. Then I'm folding down the card base, and then I'm going to trim off that little extra strip of cardstock. Then I'm going to set the card base aside and I'm going to work on the rest of the card. To create the front panel, I'm going to take the both outline dies from the set and I'm going to die cut them separately. So I'm cutting out the rectangle and the circle shape. Then I'm going to do some mixed media techniques using just the regular distress ink pads. I'm starting by applying antique linen distress ink and I'm moving from the edge of the rectangle piece onto the center, and I'm not pressing too hard because I do want those stripes to show through. That's going to help me to create a realistic old weathered stone look. Then I'm going to use the heat tool to dry up this layer. I'm going to apply the color in layers and I don't really want them to mix a lot. When the first layer is dry, I'm applying Hickory Smoke Distress ink. This time I'm using the sponge applicator. Again, I'm not trying to apply the color super smoothly. All the blotchiness that you can see is exactly how it should be. I'm going to apply this gray all over the panel and then I'm going to dry up this layer as well. As always, the tools and supplies that I'm using will be listed down below in the description box as well as on my blog. Next, I'm going to apply Forest Moss Distress ink with the finger dauber. I just love the names of distress inks, they do help with the ideas sometimes. I really am creating the moss on the stones. Then I'm coming back to Hickory Smoke, which is the gray color, and I'm swiping the ink pad across the surface again, touching it really lightly, and this is going to darken it up even more. It's also adding that texture that looks so much like a stone. And finally, I'm using Black Soot Distress ink just to touch the edges of the panel. I'm going all around them with the sponge applicator. Now when I'm done with the coloring, it's time to do some embossing, so I'm using the insert from the die set, I'm lining it up on the surface, taping it down, and then I'm going to send it through the die cutting machine twice for better results. I'm building up a standard embossing sandwich. So this is how the embossing looks like. It actually looks nice on both sides, so you can use either one, but of course this time I'll be using the colored side. To make the embossed texture stand out even more, I'm going to apply Black Soot Distress ink again with a sponge applicator. I'm going all over the raised areas and covering them up with the ink. So now my stone arch is finished and I'm moving on to creating a door. For the door, I'll be using the circle die cut that I created earlier. Now I'm lining it up with a stone arch and I'm placing it onto the scoring board. It's just to trace a thin line to indicate the direction of the wood grain that I'm going to create. It's just a vertical line that indicates the top and the bottom of the door. Then I'm applying fossilized amber distress ink, and again I'm swiping the ink pad from top to bottom to create some stripes and streaks. As always, I'm drying the ink in between the layers using the heat tool. Then I'm applying the main color all over the surface. This time it is peeled paint. You see that I'm really being inspired by the names of the inks. Then I'm going to go all around the edges again with Black Soot Distress ink. I'm making sure that no white is showing at the edges. Then I'm going to create some wood grain texture on the door, and this time instead of the die I'm going to use the wood grain embossing folder. So I'm placing the die cut inside and sending it through the machine. I spritzed the paper with water to make it more pliable, and I did it at the wrong side because I didn't want any color to be lifted. Also, the paper is larger than embossing folder, but that is not a problem. The pattern is totally expandable, so I'm placing the unembossed part in the folder again and sending it through the machine. Then I'm going to add some more peeled paint distress ink. I'm applying really little pressure to make sure I mostly color the raised areas. And this is what my wooden door should look like at the moment. To give this door a bit more sturdiness, I'm going to stick down a piece of cardstock at the wrong side. I use a 4¼ inch circle die to create it, but you can hand cut this piece since it's not going to be visible anyway. To make the door look even more like a door, I'm going to attach a handle to it. I'm placing my piece of cardstock onto the piercing mat. This one is pretty large, it's by Spellbinders. Then I'm positioning the decorative metal handle on top. And then I'm using the piercing tool to create 2 holes. To attach the handle, I'm going to use 2 mini golden brads. I'm simply inserting them through the handle and through the hole in cardstock, and then I'm splaying the prongs on the wrong side. I love how real it all starts looking. Next, I'm going to mount the door onto the card front. You can use the double-sided foam adhesive, of course, but since I ran out of all my foam adhesive, I'm just going to use a piece of craft foam and the regular double-sided tape. To really bring this card to life, I have to add some finishing touches, and I thought that some greenery would be nice for a little house like this one. You can use the colored cardstock for this, of course, but I decided to go with distress ink again just to keep the consistent look. Now I'm applying mustard seed distress ink onto the same cardstock, which is coconut white. I keep on using the same techniques that I used on the rest of this card. I'll be using Shabby Shutters as my main color, and I'm applying it straight from the ink pad onto the paper all over the surface. I'll be using some paper discovery dies to create the greenery. Some of them are actually from the water collection and they are water plants, but I thought they look so much like ferns that I can use them on this card as well. So here I have some ferns as well as the maple leaves, and now I'm going to apply some Mod Lawn Distress ink randomly, just for a bit of a brighter green. To make some of the plants darker, I'm also applying peeled paint. This way all of them are going to look slightly differently, just like in real life. This pebble dye is from another set called Water Foliage and Ducks, and I thought it would be a perfect match for the ferns. I'm applying some brown right through the dye, using it as a stencil, and then I'm going to add more brown all around the edges of the die cut. Now I can start sticking down all the plants and pebbles onto the card front. You can use different types of adhesives here. Foam squares would be nice, but as I said, I don't have them any longer, so I'm going with the hot glue since it creates some dimension and also it's a really quick drying. I used a few of the same die cuts, but I don't want them to look as a repetitive pattern, so I'm trimming down some of them and using just the parts of them, and this way I'm going for that organic look. Once I have the larger elements attached, I'm moving on to the small maple leaves and also that tiny leaves that are also created by the same dye. And I'm placing them on the ground, and I think that some of them will be flying in front of the door as well. For the tiniest elements, I'm using the pickup pencil. It's a really handy tool and really inexpensive, and it's great for working with the tiny elements like those die cuts or sequins or gems. To create a sentiment, I'll be using sentiment strips by Simon Says Stamped. They are already printed white on black, and those cards have a lot of nice sayings all about friendship. All you have to do is to cut out the sayings that you like the best, and I'm so happy I managed to find the one that does mention a door. So the whole saying will go, "Hey Bestie, why can't you live next door?" I'm attaching all the strips with the hot glue. I'm just applying some of it at the wrong side, and I'm not pressing it down too hard so that I can have some dimension. I just have to add a couple more tiny leaves as finishing touches, and my card front is finished. Now I just have to apply some adhesive onto the card base and stick down the panel on top of it. This way the card can be standing on the desk, and of course I will have some space to add the message. Before I finished, I just wanted to show you the negative space that is created by the die that I used to die cut the maple leaves with. It's definitely something not to be wasted. I can just stick it down onto the card base, add a sentiment, and I will have a lovely 3-minute card. And by the way, this is not the first Hobbit themed card that I have created. Here is another one I made about a year ago, and that one is made with Spellbinders dies mostly. I'll put in a link down below in the description in case you want to check out this one as well. So this is what the finished card looks like for today. I really like all the textures and colors in it. This metal handle does add a bit of bulk, so I think I will have to use some bubble film at the front of the card, and I will also place this card in the bubble film envelope, and this way it can be mailed. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Do check out other tutorials since I have a lot of them on stretching your dies and using them for more than they were meant to. Have a beautiful day, and I hope to see you again really soon.